Smarticle podcast coming down in 3, 2. Brandon's a giant turd. This is the Smarticle podcast. You could have chosen any of the 2 other quadrillion podcasts available in the galaxy. You've chosen ours. We are humbled. And in thanks for you choosing us, we are going to give you 5 seconds of silence. Yes, you've chosen our podcast, and we're giving you silence. All right.
Wow, did you just literally flip me the bird at the end of the silence?
Hey, come on, man.
Well,
Can you
I'm
not
just
let
saying.
everybody know it's a podcast? They
I
can't see
know,
that.
but people, you put this up online, people could see, your mom could see it. Have a little professional decorum, Larry. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, we started a new program a few weeks ago. If you right now go to where you get this podcast and leave a comment, leave a comment, like it, or subscribe to it, Brandon is going to say a prayer for you. We're calling it our Alms for Action program.
Alms, that's when people give you something.
Alms
Prayer for action. You don't even know what that means.
If you want Brandon to cure that nasty rash that's been on your ankle, leave a comment. Brandon prays for them. You, and then
if somebody left a comment and said, "Please pray for my rash," I would do that. Because Larry, at the beginning of the show, you said they chose us. You know what? We choose them.
Yeah,
we choose them, Larry.
Listen, you leave a comment. Brandon prays for the rash. We get some traction on the Smarticle podcast. It's just alms for action, Brandon.
That doesn't work.
In the last part I want to say about this, I don't think people realize how strong your prayers actually are. I know sometimes we joke about this, but you've got really strong prayers. So
I am a prayer warrior for sure.
Alms for action. There you go.
That would make sense.
Today's post, the key to happy, stable marriage. It comes via the great Rhaina Cohen. She's the author
of Rhaina Cohen.
The Other Significant Others, Reimagining Life with Friendship at the Center. So real quickly, before we get into this, I was actually at Brandon's wedding. He decided to veto the wedding invitation we gave him. So we want Brandon to come to ours, and I actually went to Brandon's invitation. Just because we're talking about marriage, little just context there, Brandon.
Yeah, I was out of the country, but that's neither here nor there.
Okay, Brandon, the Woke Up MAGA meter. Brandon, please tell me that we got some MAGA effing marriage advice today for people.
No, we got no MAGA advice. We got mocha advice here. Full mocha, full woke. Well, I wouldn't say full woke. She seems reasonable to me. I'll give her a 6.
Just a quick, another public service announcement. I've been married for 40 years. Brandon's a newlywed. So I think that also just adds a little nuance to what.
Yes, 40 years, dude. Oh, can you imagine?
And you're a newlywed. I can imagine that.
That's just, every day is like a walk in the park. It's fantastic.
Here's a smidge of the article. Some classicists argue that friendship played the central role in ancient Roman society that marriages do today. A Roman might refer to a friend in terms that people now use for only a spouse, such as half of my soul or the greater part of my soul. In the Byzantine Empire, pairs of male friends, who in some cases might have been lovers, would enter Christian churches to be ritually turned into brothers, united for life. Some were buried together. But as more shifted, a spouse took on the role once played by a friend. During the Victorian era, an increased emphasis on romantic love encouraged young people to expect more from marriage, not just pragmatic benefits, but also deep connection and companionship. Since then, expectations of marriage have continued to balloon. Now, movies, songs, and books tell us that a spouse should be not just your greatest love, but your everything, as the Michael Bublé song goes, your confidant, soulmate, and best friend. All right. So even more perspective for me, Brandon, because I was reading this article. Humans have been around for like 300,000 years or so, something like that. So there's kind of been some unions between people, arguably for that long. And marriages, as we think of them, like you grew up, you find your soulmate, right off into the sunset like a Hallmark movie. Those types of marriages have been around for like 90 years. So 300,000 versus 90 years is the perspective here.
Right. For most of human history, marriage was a partnership, an economic partnership where you would marry into a family and the family would marry into you and you would combine them. So you'd combine resources. That's oftentimes why one chief would marry their daughter, son or daughter off to another chief son or daughter. So you could combine the link between those two groups of people. So there was politics involved. So this idea of romantic love is relatively new. I've read a number of things. There's probably some good reasons for the romantic love piece. Obviously, if a man is in love with his wife, he's probably going to be less inclined to beat her, right? So, the violence of a marriage might be less because let's be honest. I mean, women have taken the brunt of bad marriages over the. I mean, you could say that she was a henpecked him, but I mean, rarely was she taking a bat to his head, right? So there is something to be said about men treating women better, and that a healthy marriage would be a respectful marriage. But I don't think that has to do necessarily with romance as much as it has to do with respect.
And how do we get there? I hate to say it's all like because of the movies and TV shows.
No, it's probably more to do with the Industrial Revolution and the ability of people
because we had time.
We had time, exactly. We had time, and we also had a rising standard of living. So people didn't need the community. So think about you said 300,000 years, 300,000, 100,000 years, ish in that.
You get the point. There's a ratio going on.
Yes, there's somewhere in that thing. But for most of human history, we lived in what were called clan groupings, which meant sort of cousins, extended family. We lived in clans to protect ourselves. And most of those clans, for most of human history, before in the agricultural revolution, people lived in nomadic clanal groups. So you would go from place to place because food resources were limited. So you'd have to move. So moving is more dangerous than living a sedentary life because there's dangers out on the Serengeti. So you would live with other people to help protect you. And the idea of a clan means family. Family is going to stick by each other. That's the basic fundamental idea. As we move away from that clanal nomadic lifestyle and we become more sedentary, people live in villages, but that's still communal living. They're still living, like you've said this before, like we're looking in on each other's lives. We're seeing what our neighbors are doing. We're not living, by the way, people living out in great distances away from communal groups basically didn't happen before the modern era because it was unsafe. If you're by yourself out somewhere, you don't have protection. So a lot of times what would happen is people would live in villages and they'd farm way out. So you'd have your farm somewhere else, but you wouldn't live on your farm. You live in your village because you needed protection. So as we move away from that, we move to this new idea of romantic love. Now they said the Victorian age because people wrote about it, right?
And ladies and gentlemen, that was the history of marriage brought to you by Brandon Goebel.
Yeah, but you got to have some context, man. You got to have some context.
I often think we need context, but not as much context as you give. Just a smidge more from this article. Sociologists have found that
married wait a second. People should write in and say we need more or more less. Okay.
Sociologists have found that married people have weaker relationships with neighbors, relatives, and friends than single people do. We end up undermining romantic relationships by expecting too much and weakening friendships by expecting too little. And kind of back to what you say, in the old days, our family was our friendship group, right? Whereas now it's more the friends that are the real friends of the friends group, but we're not making as many friends. We're not you live in the suburbs, you go to your home, you don't even know your neighbor.
Yeah, you're isolated from it. And there's no guarantee that a family group is going to be better for you than a friend group either.
No.
I mean, I've known lots of people that are like, their families suck. They're not nice people. They're not good. They're much better off if they just have a good, healthy friend group.
Yeah.
So, part of that is just knowing yourself, knowing what is a good group. I wonder sometimes if people even understand what a good community looks like. I feel like we just don't have that.
Okay, so just real quickly, my definition of that is just some person, couple, family member that you share with. Like how many married people have another couple that they actually share how things are actually going on in their marriage with?
Yeah, and she references in this article about one healthy couple had another couple living with them. They had a couple with a child, so they shared a home. And, because of economics or whatever, and it was really healthy for their marriage. I mean, I think about that a lot. I think that if I know that Corey and I are very social people, and probably social is a part of it, but we would happily live with other couples.
Social's one thing, sharing is another. I think I think most people, I'm social, I go about.
No, you're right.
Actually share what is going on in your marriage.
Well, you love to make fun of my time in my fraternity. And
another story, more story.
At the Alpha Tau Omega house. But one of the great things about living in a fraternity is you're in this house with these 100 dudes, and you had to work together. You're sharing rooms with them. You got to clean up all that stuff. I know. Avoid your
Hold on.
whatever it's about ready to come out of your mouth.
No,
Avoid saying
is
it.
your marriage like the ATO?
I knew whatever was going to come out right there. There's a look that Larry gives me when it's that it's just absolute hogwash
I'm
coming out
just
of his mouth.
wondering if
My point is it's communal, that you're sharing life together. You're sitting down at the same table together. 100 dudes in a room eating dinner together. It's just a different experience than if you sit down at your family table. Now, you guys are big family table people, right? You have and I know as kids have gotten old, it's probably harder, but you always you sit down with your family. I've been coming to the Olsen family dinners for 20 years, and they're fabulous. I love them. But you guys sit down as a family, and you guys have conversation.
Yeah.
And your wife drinks too much wine, and it's just fantastic. But what is that? What you mean by sharing?
I mean, just like couples. My wife, so we've been married 20 years, not 40. Seems like 40.
Oh, seems like forever.
We've had 2 bouts of going to marriage counseling. One, thank you, driven by Brandon Doble about 10 years ago. And we've recently had to go back after 20 years. And my wife we're around groups of people now. She loves to just share that we're going to marriage counseling again.
She just overshares it.
She just loves to share it. And my first, it just gives me the heebie-jeebies. Like, oh God, we're she does it in front of people we know well and not know well, everybody. But it does put this out there that there's just it instantly deepens the conversation in whatever group when she shares we're going to marriage counseling. And I hate it, but then I'm like, you know what? I love it.
Yeah, I think, I'm much more open, I think, than most people are in general. I'm just not uncomfortable sharing my life. I mean, I feel like, why would I lie to people? They know, there's nothing worse than being around those people that that they're full of it. But, oh, yeah, everything's great. Oh, life's perfect. I'm like, life's not perfect, man.
But that's sort of how the system is set up. You go to someone's house.
I know it is, but that's my point is you've made a point for why it's healthy to actually share your life, to say, hey, you know what? I always appreciate it. Corey will tell you, I don't do well with broken wings. That's a kind of a weird term, but people that are just a hot mess, unless
interesting.
I don't like people that are a hot mess. They bug the hell out of me unless those people are willing to own their poop. If they're willing to say, hey, man, I am a hot mess. I don't know what I'm doing. I just am barely hanging on. Man, I'm in it with you. But when you're are a hot mess and you're like, oh, no, everything's great. My life is great. Everybody's life's great. I'm like, and yet there's churches are notorious for this, right? Where hot messes show up, the broken wings show up, and then they expect you to put up with their shit because you're in a church like, oh, we're all Christians. We're supposed to put up with each other's nonsense. No, we're not. We're supposed to be honest with each other. We're supposed to share life with each other. And if all you're doing is dumping on me the whole time, that's not sharing life. That's you dumping on me.
The greatest marriage advice or nugget of information that I ever got was from the great Rob Bell. And he said, him and his wife were talking about marriage, and they said, it's just about connection. Do you keep the connection with your partner? Do you go on the same vacations? Do you read the same books? Do you go to the same movies? Do you have the same friends? Because once the connection starts slipping, that's when you kind of go your own. So this idea of having friends that you share, keeping that connection between you, you just can't put a price on that.
Yeah, and I also think there's a danger for people who say who believe we have to agree on everything. We have to share everything.
No.
We have to like the same things. I mean, absolutely not. You do not need. What you need to do is you don't like everything your wife likes.
No.
Right. And that's my point. Right. I mean, there are things your wife loves it. But there are things that we can have as maybe we share it with our other friends. But I think at the core of it all is, do we share a common vision in terms of what we want for our lives together? I think that's a big part of it.
All right. So here is a final plea that I'd like to give before we get out of here.
Final plea.
If you would like Brandon to come to your house and do some marriage counseling, he'd be happy to do that. He's been really busy with these all fan shows he's doing where you pay a couple bucks, he does a dance in front of your thing. If you'd rather have Brandon come to your house and do some marriage counseling, he's a lovely fellow.
I would be a great marriage counselor. I would really be great.
I don't know about that.
I think people should email us and I'll do a Zoom marriage counseling with them.
Oh.
Yeah, they're not going to like what I have to say to them. There's going to be a lot of tears, but I will tell you the truth.
Okay. Well, listen, I just want to say this. Brandon, thank you